In the movie Laura, the investigator falls in love with her while he's investigating her death. I think Paul is an investigator in the Office of Naval Intelligence, and he took a job at Walden Books, hoping I would apply there because if I needed a job, I would love to work in a bookstore. And maybe he predicted that about me. I was offered a job as an apartment manager, and Richard Henning Jr. was moving to Kentucky. Rich and I would have had a year with free rent and maybe some pay. But the way they laid it all out to me, I would be the one on call 24 hours a day. I would have to paint apartments. I've never painted a wall before. I've never painted an apartment. I've never painted a wall. And clear the snow, which I thought would be easy. They said they had a snow blower. That would not have been easy. But mostly it was being on call 24 hours a day. Rich and I would never have off time, where we didn't have anyone we were, we'd be on the edge all the time, waiting for someone to knock at the door. And I had applied at Walden Books, and I was happy to be offered the job at Villa de View here in Fond du Lac. And Richard Henning Jr. had to take a cut in pay to work for Mediacom in Kentucky. And we were supporting two households, one for me and Rich so he could graduate high school here, and one for Richard Henning Jr. and he was working in Benton, so he looked in the surrounding areas. Anyway, it was good that the time came for Paul to pull me out of the situation I was in, because I didn't even know I was in a situation. Richard Henning Jr. and I had been married for 18 years by that time. And I was suspicious of him sometimes for being such a fucking idiot and so dense and emotionally dense. Like insisting we hide in plain sight with my mother, send her Christmas cards, take her calls, and all that. But I listened to one of her voicemail messages once and ended up in the bedroom closet shaking, hiding under a blanket in the dark, in the middle of the day. And I realized it was life or death for me. I couldn't listen to her calls. They have phrases and trigger phrases. Dr. Bennett Brown knows about this. When he had his multiple personality clinic in Chicago, he had to screen and make sure that his clients in the hospital, his patients, didn't get cards or flowers or anything, because everything had a different meaning to it. It was all to trigger the survivor. So he wouldn't allow cards or flowers from family members or friends for his patients. Apparently, he learned the hard way. His patients being triggered out of their minds. It took him a while to figure it out. Anyway, I am witness to satanic ritual abuse because I was abused in a satanic ritual, and I haven't had many in satanic rituals, and I haven't had many memories of it, but my subconscious holds it all. And God is the king of the realm of the subconscious, and he is able to draw memories from me and try to have me, cope with them. you know, he tells me that on some level, he's trying to get me to adjust. Um, but the movie Laura, my parents said they named me after the song Laura in the movie, and I think it's called Laura. I'll have to look it up. But I think the movie was made before I was born. But they said they named me for the song. Laura on a train that is passing by, footsteps that you hear down the hall. She gave her very first kiss to you that you can never quite recall. Anyway, Hollywood and the government may have predicted that it would take an investigator to help me, and that that person would probably fall in love with me, but I would be dead. But there have been many attempts on my life. I mean, from a child to the first one I remember was when I was about 15. This kid that went to Killian rode his bike home. I guess I rode my bike home down 97th Avenue, which had no shoulder, and he passed me on my left and knocked my hand really hard, and I lost control of my bike. And there's a car that was close by. It was kind of a high traffic time, and she almost hit me. She slammed on her brakes. She almost hit me. She got out of her car. She was really shook up. She said, who was that? Did you see what he tried to do to you? And my hand was bleeding. Mm-hmm. I didn't know the kid. I'd never met him. I didn't have any classes with him. He was just some ugly, fat, twisted kid. Anyway. up there? Mm-hmm. If Richard Henry Jr. had been in town, living with me and Rich, he would have programmed me every night. I may never have gotten away from him. But I felt so happy and so healthy when he was in Kentucky, and I went to the new apartment. It was a small apartment in a house where Rich and I were going to live. And I played Simon and Garfunkel, started cleaning. And the first chance I got, I went to Lakeside Park I had what do you call it, a full bathing suit, not a bikini, not a two-piece, a one-piece bathing suit. And I wore shorts or pants, and I got sun on my back. I needed sun on my spine. I wrote it this way, but it's true. I felt healthier and happier on my own. Richard Henry Jr. was quite a ways away. He worked in Benton, Kentucky for Mediacom Communications. He told me before he left that they're reputed to be a mob organization. They named a building after him after he died. He died a year after our divorce was filed. Richard Denny Jr. will be eternally offended that Paul pulled me out before the next op on me, which is to live in Kentucky and probably be abandoned by him. You know, have no way to work because I always kept getting set up. I was a target. And just ending up homeless and hungry, I guess. I mean, I was really devoted to him and to, him advancing in his career and moved several times, like maybe 7, to different states, state to state, during Rich's, my son's, growing up time. My son went to like 7 different schools growing up. Anyway, there was a next op on me, and I might not have been able to figure my way out of it. So Paul got me out of it. Paul communicated with me telepathically. He sent his gentle spirit to be with me. And I didn't know it was God. It was just a really pleasant, gentle spirit. Very welcoming, warm, and kind. And it took me 3 weeks to figure out the body that was attached to the spirit was Paul. He was my boss. But he took me on a life review of the second part of my life. Because I had no clue Richard Henry Jr. was opping me. I would be mad at him or suspicious sometimes. Like that time. He wouldn't give me his blessing to us, I could have made a decision on my own, but I thought we were partners and I discussed things with him. But after that phone call, I said, that's it, We've got to change our number to an unlisted number and make sure nobody has it that knows Donna. That Donna doesn't have it, nobody has it. And he said no. He said, I don't agree. He said, we don't need to do that. Hide in plain sight. Take her Christmas card, send her a Christmas card. Send her a card for her birthday. You motherfucker. And I said, I want a divorce. Because for me it was life and death, and he was too fucking dense to see it. And we argued and argued and argued, and then he started having chest pain, and we took him to the emergency room, and he was admitted. And I went home that night to be with Boo Boo, who was with a next door neighbor, Cindy Wagner, and her kids, while I was in the hospital with Richard Henry Jr. I'm pretty sure that's the case. Anyway, Richard's brother Carl called and said, so Richard tells me you two are getting a divorce. And I thought Richard was going to find a way through it, to apologize and come around to my way of thinking and stuff. I wanted a divorce and I was ready to have it, but I didn't think he would concede to it. And he did, and that devastated me. because, I did everything that God asked me to do in my life ever since I was 21. And I was praying and in contact with spirits and angels, and then eventually God, I guess. I mean, unless they were all God. But, if my marriage to Richard Haney Jr. hadn't been meant to be, I'm sure God would have found a way to stop it. So my faith was quite shaken. I was like, wait a minute, you're telling me he's a demon? He's the demon of Thades. And then I had to read more of the Pista Sophia. I had read some of it before I met Paul, and it was just like incomprehensible. And it's ascend, descend, blah, 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 page after page. I had to read more of it after I met Paul. It was like so fucking depressing. It's like this process that never ends. And I'm like, who was there to stop our wedding? We got married. I had a justice of the peace. And I have since found out, not in waking life, but in the astral plane, that he was a bigamist. I was never married to him. He had a wife, at least one, I guess. He's got other kids. So Richard Haney Jr. will be eternally vengeful against Paul and me, because Paul got me out and I dumped Richard Haney Jr. before he got me down in Kentucky and dumped me. And that's the part that bothers him the most of the whole 18 years. Like, he didn't have a baby with me or anything. He's the one that was with Rich when that attachment was put on his head. So I'm gonna stop recording and upload this.